All right. Okay, now I'm getting feedback. 1 second. All right, we should be all right. Let me tweet this out. Then we'll just get started. Hello, James Smith. How are you? Can you hear me? Can you respond in the chat just to make sure that my mic and everything is working properly? And I'm gonna add a little GIF here. All right, awesome, King K. Appreciate that. Let's see, what GIF am I gonna use here to send this? The selection's not that great. Yo estoy bien, gracias por entrar a este live stream. Appreciate all you guys joining. I'm gonna pop the chat real quick. So usually how I've been doing things, things are gonna change a little bit. So I was doing recaps and previews for basically almost every pay-per-view and every big fight night. Now I want to do things a little differently. That was a bit what's the word? Not exhausting, but it was just a lot. So I think the best way to go about things is I'm just gonna do a weekly Q&A here on my YouTube channel, and with that I'll recap whatever event happened that weekend. So in this case, UFC Sao Paulo, and I'll also preview whatever is coming. So I believe the next thing is UFC DC. So we can do that in this very video, and then obviously I will answer all your questions about anything MMA related, non-MMA related, whatever it is. So yeah, that's the way it's gonna work. So it's not no longer gonna be a recap and a preview. It's just gonna be just a Q&A. So this is the first one, and that's it. That's all I got. So let me tweet this out real quick, and we shall get started. In the meantime, if you want to throw questions on the chat, since usually what I was doing before was answering first the Twitter ones, because I'd like for some questions to be queued up. Nobody unfortunately sent any questions. I mean, last night's event wasn't all that big, so I was kind of expecting a low turnout anyways. But if you want to throw stuff on the chat, I'll tackle that on the chat. So I guess it's going to be chat questions only here. So yeah. And let me throw the link to. Oh, actually, no, the link's there. All right, cool. So we're good. All right. Well, I guess, yeah, that's one of the biggest things that's changed since the last time I did one of these videos, right? Kokobut, thank you for your congratulations and your good wishes. Yes, for those who did not know, I mean, I tweeted this out, and it's been out there for a few days now, and I started with MMA Junkie a couple of days ago. So no, I'm no longer with MMA Fighting. I am part of the MMA Junkie team, and I'm excited to be part of the team. And I've only been working there for 2 days technically, but I'm very excited. I think some cool stuff's coming. And I know a lot of people were like, oh, we want to see more of you and whatnot. I think you guys will moving forward. So I'm excited for what's coming. I think MMA Junkie has a great vision and a great team, and I'm honored to be part of such a historic site, really. So yeah, it's all good news. So yeah, I'm pretty happy. So thank you for everyone that sent me messages. There's so many. I did not sort of expect that that sort of reaction, and I was kind of overwhelmed, to be honest, about how many people I don't know, cared. I don't know. But yeah, it was nice. So I got all your messages. I read almost all. It's hard to reply to all, but I did my best. And yeah, I appreciate all your good sentiments. All right. Yeah, John Morgan owes me a beer, by the way. And yes, we're cool. He's awesome. I've seen him a few events, even prior, to working with him now. I've met him at a few events, and great dude. And yeah, he owes me a beer. He owes me a cold one. So I'll be expecting that soon whenever I see him. But yeah, let's get the questions rolling. I think enough about that. Let's talk MMA. That's what we're here for, right? I'm good. Marcos Levi. Estoy bien. Todo bien. All right. First one. Would you prefer to see John Jones versus Anderson or Reyes personally? By Rob S. Personally, I would like to see John Jones face Anderson because I'll tell you why. There's a few reasons why. First of all, I think Anderson, with what he did against Johnny Walker, was super impressive to start off. But like the storyline, his persona, everything that went into that fight, and his energy after the post fight, because I was there at UFC 244. His energy after his the post fight, and when he was doing the scrum, it was something else. I mean, I don't know how that came across on camera. Sure, to some degree, like a lot of it went through well, or it represented well. But when you're there, there's something in the air that you get from this guy. Like, dude, this guy is angry. This guy has a chip on his shoulder, and I'm sure Ray is like that too, and he's a fierce competitor. But there's something special about Corey Anderson right now, 2019 Corey Anderson. Also, Corey Anderson, they're about the same age. Corey Anderson is not that much older. Let me pull up his age here just so I'm exact. But we know that age is very deceiving in MMA, right? Because it's all about MMA age, right? You see somebody like Shogun, for example. He's 32. He just fought over the weekend, right, at UFC Sao Paulo just last night. 32 is not that old. There's a lot of fighters like Ngannou. There's a lot of fighters that are 32 and kind of just getting started in their career. And they look and feel much different, right? Even though the age might fluctuate. So, for example, Shogun Rua, yeah, he's 32, but in MMA years, that guy's pretty old. He's been in some wars. He's been around the block a few times. So, back to what I was saying about Anderson. Anderson, I kind of get the same feeling. Like, I'm sure he can get a lot better. I'm sure he will get a lot better. But I think for the most part, I don't want to say he's a finished product, but we kind of know who he is. Whereas Dominic Reyes is still very much in development. So I know he wants that title shot. And I know he probably wouldn't be too happy if he gets skipped over and Anderson gets the shot. But I think in the long term, it'll be better for him if he just waits more time, maybe gets one more fight in, gets a little bit more experience under his belt, and before he faces John Jones, because a lot comes with it: media attention, media obligations, right? You're training, right? Preparing for somebody as skilled as him. So, and the more footage you get of John Jones, the better. So you might see that Corey Anderson fight against John Jones. Let's say John Jones wins. You have some tape there to add to your studies and use that in your training camp. So yes, I think Anderson is the way to go. I think it's the bigger fight. I think Anderson deserves it. I think he has the bigger body of work. Obviously, he's been in the UFC for a long time. Story wise, it makes sense. It's Anderson has been on fire with the media lately. I think I would hold higher beating Johnny Walker than Chris Weidman, really. I mean, Chris Weidman is a big name, but he's also was a middleweight, and also at middleweight in the last few years, he hasn't been doing too hot, whereas Johnny Walker was the man stepping into that fight, right? So yes, Rob S., to answer your question, I would like to see Corey Anderson get the shot over Dominic Reyes. And I think, and trust me, it'll be a good thing for Reyes in the long run. So yeah, Anderson should get that shot next. But look at Jan Blachowicz. I mean, he had a pretty good performance as well. Not the most exciting, but he's awesome to come up. Maybe Blachowicz versus Reyes. That could be something. I don't know. All right. Pancration. Danny, sup, bro? Congrats on getting a job with MMA Junkie. I've seen you've been training boxing. Don't you appreciate the striking techniques much more now since you've started? More media members should train. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that, and I see this a lot, like people like, writing and replying to me or other people in tweets like, oh, you shouldn't be talking about MMA. You don't train. By no means that's true. Like you need a degree in journalism or some experience in journalism and working in media to cover MMA. You don't need to know how to fight, right? I mean, it helps in sense of like, knowing the terms and know what's going on and relating to fighters and all that. But you can very well be successful in working in MMA media and not train a day in your life. I train because I just like it. Like I wrestled in high school. I've done jiu-jitsu for like 7 years. And now yesterday was my 6-month anniversary doing boxing. I had dabbled doing some Muay Thai here and there, just like, fighting people, like, fighting friends, like after jujitsu classes, put on gloves and do something dumb like that, but never formal. Now I'm actually like, with coaches and getting proper training. And yes, I do appreciate the striking a lot more. And not only that, I see fights differently. Like it changes your consumer experience. If you're a fan, like if you're watching this and you don't train, I encourage you to train. It really does change your experience consuming MMA. Like before, it was just like, because I had jujitsu pretty much on deck. Like I got my a blue belt in 2013, and I've competed in multiple tournaments. So like I'm pretty well aware of what's going on the ground. Obviously, there's guys that are very high level, Damian Maya, that I'm sure that are doing things that you don't even pick up, even if you do train. But but I kind of get the gist of things. And then in the striking, I always felt like it was like something like, it's striking, like it's kind of obvious. The ground, it seems a lot harder to understand than striking. Like if you're getting hit, what, like, who's losing, right? Obviously. Whereas on the ground, like if you show somebody that's never seen MMA or any type of martial art, um, who knows? They could think like whoever's stuck in the triangle choke could be winning. Like it's just a lot more complex. So I do have learned to appreciate the striking a lot more. I'm a lot more aware of what's going on now as far as traps and setups and combinations. And yeah, it's made me appreciate striking a lot more. And I've been so happy training boxing. It's been fun, and I look forward to continue training. So yeah, it's been a great experience. And thank you for the congratulations, Sprint Creation. Appreciate that. All right. Let's see. Anthony Oso, Jacare versus Jan, worst fight of the year. Charles Oliveira was the highlight of the entire card. Yeah, he came across as the biggest superstar. Now I'll talk to him. I'll talk about him in a second. But yeah, Jacare versus Jan, was it the worst fight of the year? It's up there as far as high profile fights. Yeah, sure. I'm trying to remember what other fights haven't been too exciting. I mean, there's so much MMA nowadays that like I feel like, I'm trying to go back down in my head, and I feel like just the last month feels like a year, so, or like the last couple of months. So there might be a more boring fight. It wasn't the absolute worst. But as far as recent memory is concerned, yeah, it wasn't a very exciting fight. Um, that's just what happens. I think Jacare was very cautious, seeing Chris Weidman get knocked out, seeing Luke Rockhold get knocked out. Like these guys were really good at middleweight, and clearly did not have any success at 205, at least yet. I think, and he knew that, because he even talked to, I believe it was Guillermo Cruz, and he was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to talk like Luke Rockhold. So he was trying to do the opposite. So I think he went with that mentality for the trash talk, and he also went with that mentality in the fight. Like he's like, I'm going to play it safe, just make sure I get a solid experience fighting at 205, get my feet wet, and then, moving forward, then he can take more risks. But that was a weird fight to score. I had him winning the first 3 rounds, and then I had Jan winning the last 2. I know a lot of people felt differently, and to be honest, that fight was so uneventful that I don't have a problem with Jan taking the victory. But yeah, it was a weird one. It wasn't very exciting. And Charles Oliveira, what can you say about that guy? That guy is good. And for the longest time, I remember when he made his UFC debut, and like there was like a lot of talk, and he would say like, oh, I want to be the youngest champion in the UFC, this and that. And there was a lot of promise. He started hot. Let me pull up his profile here on Wikipedia. So he's 30 now. That's prime right there. Prime experience, prime physical shape. Not for everybody, for the most part. And he started in the UFC. So his first fight was against Darren Elkins. I remember that. So that was in 2010. That's almost a decade ago. Like we're getting pretty close to that. So yeah, that was 9 years ago. So he was 21. Imagine that. So I remember there was a lot of promise because look, he fought Darren Elkins. We all know Darren Elkins is tough as shit and he's really hard to submit. And he submitted him in the first round with an armbar. Got submission of the night. A lot of hype around this kid. Then he goes against Efrain Escuero, who's an interesting story. He up and down, up and down, up and down. But nonetheless, like Efrain Escuero is a stud. He's a very, very good fighter. Won the Ultimate Fighter. One of my favorite seasons. I believe that was that was the one with Junie Browning. Was it Bisping Henderson? Maybe. Let me see. Oh no, that was Nogueira versus Mir. It was a good season as well. But yeah, he submitted him, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, dude, this guy, Charles Oliveira. And then all of a sudden he started running into some studs, lost to Jim Miller, no contest against Nick Lentz, lost against Donald Cerrone. That was a huge step up. Then picked up 2 wins, lost 2, picked up another few, then lost to Max Holloway. Then, he was kind of up and down. So he felt like Charles Oliveira felt like this guy that it was obvious he was a talent. It was obvious that he was very skilled. It was obvious that he was very promising, but he started getting older and he never reached that next level. It was just like he looks good. Sometimes he looks not so great. But as of recent, as of 2018, he's put on a crazy streak. So he got 3 wins in 2018, defeating Clay Guida, Christos Giagos, and Jim Miller, getting that one back. And then in 2019, he's put on 3 wins again. David Temur, Nick Lentz, and Jared Gordon. All very tough guys, all very skilled fighters. He's not fighting bums. And now he finds himself on a 6-fight win streak, as experienced as ever at 155 and at 145. I think that was big as well in him being able to unlock this new level. And he just came across as the biggest winner and the biggest superstar in Brazil. He got a huge pop, a very impressive performance. And I would say he was the highlight of the entire card. He called out Conor McGregor. Let's be real. I mean, crazy things happened, but he's not a big name, at least for the casuals, right? He is a big name if you're a hardcore fan. Obviously, you know who that guy is. But yeah, I doubt he's getting the Conor McGregor fight. But look, I do think he should get a big name opponent, somebody in the top 10. It's clear that he's looking good. He deserves a step up. I mean, the 6-fight win streak, I think it's time to take it up a level. And he's sneaky, man. He might be your dark horse in the division, because when you talk about the top guys at lightweight, you're like, obviously Tony Ferguson, Habib is the champion. Connor's still talked about as being a top guy. I do think he's probably a top 5. Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier is still up there. Dan Hooker recently making a big name, but nobody really talks all that much about Charles Oliveira. I think soon we will. I think he'll enter that conversation fairly soon, obviously depending on who he gets matched up against. But I think, I think that's a guy to keep an eye on. I think that's a guy that could very well be reaching the top 5 and entering title contention in 2020. 2020 should be a big year for Charles Oliveira. I'm excited to see what's in store for him. All right. Jackson Rounds, Oliveira should get a top 10 guy now, right? And who? Yeah, he should. Let me pull up the rankings right here. Let's stay on that Charles Oliveira train. And also, dude, like the guy's always been a threat on the ground, and now he's knocking people out. Like, that's the complete package right there. He's definitely turning into something. So here's the top 10. So obviously you got Nurmagomedov, the champion, number 1, Tony Ferguson, 2, Dustin Poirier, 3, Conor McGregor, 4, Justin Gaethje, 5, Donald Cerrone, 6, Paul Felder, 7, Dan Hooker, 8, Kevin Lee, 9, Al Quinta, 10, Edson Barbosa. That is your top 10 of the UFC lightweight division as of Sunday, November 17th. Now, there's a few guys. Charles Oliveira is ranked 13th. I mean, This division is looking good. There's a few young guys that are coming up that should be exciting. Literally, the new generation, the new wave is Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev, and Dan Hooker. You can put Alexander Hernandez in there too as well. He's good. He's had some hiccups, but he's coming up as well, and he's young as hell too. He might be the youngest out of the bunch, but I mean, I think did he fight Paul Felder already and lost? I feel like he did, right? Charles Oliveira. I'd like, yeah, he did. That was his last loss. You know what? I wouldn't hate that fight, but I also feel like Paul deserves a higher name opponent. So that could be an option. I think the Donald Cerrone fight would be good, and Donald Cerrone is notorious for welcoming the young guys. Like, he does not give a fuck. That guy doesn't care. I mean, he's someone that a lot of fighters protect their number, protect their ranking because it is important. And I'm not, shedding on them. I'm not trying to be disparaging at all, but that's the way it goes. Like, I get it for sure. But I also have tons of respect for someone like Donald Cerrone, who is willing to put over these young guys or show them what's up. Be like, you're not there yet. So yeah, I think a fight with Donald Cerrone would be fun. And also, that was a loss he had like what in 2011, 8 years ago. A lot has changed since. So I wouldn't hate a Donald Cerrone matchup. I think they match up pretty well, and they're very similar actually as far as like what they're good at. That could be next for him. Yeah, I wouldn't hate it. A Cerrone matchup. Yeah. Kevin Lee too. That wouldn't be bad. Yeah. Anyone really in the top 10. He's in a position where like that's once you get in the top 5, that's when things get a little more careful with the matchups. Right now, anyone in the top 10 works for Oliveira, really. How much did that UFC card suck yesterday? That was by Pat Mack. Yeah, you know what? I think I entered watching that card with a more pessimistic view. And then once the fight started rolling out, I'm like, oh, these fights are actually pretty good. Like, we had Trinaldo versus Bobby Green. Like, I'm a huge fan of Bobby Green. Like, I feel like I feel like Bobby Green is also like an underrated fighter and also an under-promoted fighter. I think he's very much in the same line of like a Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal. Like, that guy's street. That guy, his interviews have always been fun and exciting. Like, I don't know why he isn't a bigger star than he is. And his style is fun too. Yeah, that was a fun fight. You had Charles Oliveira as well. I wanted to see how Shogun looked. Like, once the fight started rolling out, I'm like, okay, yeah, this card's not that bad. The main event did suck, but other than that, like, it was a decent fight. And look, the fights ended like at what, like 10 something. This was one of those cards that started early and the fights kind of just went by fairly quick. I can't complain. Watching fights till 2 a.m. or whatever, like 1 a.m., that's not fun. So yeah, the timing was great and the fights were all right. They weren't bad. So I mean, I get it if you really hated that card, but to be honest, I didn't think it was the worst thing in the world. It was all right. Coco Butt asks, what was your favorite wrestling move in high school? I was never a double guy. I had this one move that I would catch people all the time in jiu-jitsu tournaments as well. I got pretty good at it. It was more like a setup. So I go 2-on-1 on the wrist. Usually I would grab your right wrist, or depending on the way your stance would go, whatever wrist would correspond to your back foot, so not your lead foot. Because unlike boxing you kind of first of all, the stance is switched, right? You want your strongest leg on the back, right? So my left leg is forward, whereas wrestling is the opposite. So see, like, I'd be shifted. My left shoulder's leading right now if I'm boxing. If I'm wrestling, because I'm kind of leaning back, right, with my posture. Whereas wrestling is the opposite. My right shoulder is leading, and my right foot is my strongest foot, which is my right foot. That foot is leading. That foot's in front of me. So whatever hand would be on your back foot, on your weak foot, that's where I would go 2-on-1 on the wrist. And then I'm kind of giving it away. If I ever compete, this would suck. Well, I mean, whoever I compete probably won't be watching this, but and then I would just circle around and kind of do like a snap down and really pull down on the wrist. And I would do it away from the wrist. So I would make you start putting your weight on your back foot, which was technically your weak foot, whatever that foot was, depending on your stance, and then do that a couple times. Just to, as soon as you get that hard step and you plant, it usually takes a second. If you have that much weight on a foot, it usually takes a second to remove that and kind of reset on your stance. And as soon as that would go, I would just let go, or either just transition and move it across and just shoot for a single, come around it, pick it up, and then from there I had like a bunch of trips and takedowns to use with the single, depending on the situation. But the single leg takedown was my thing. Never a double guy. I mean, my double wasn't bad, but my single leg takedown was pretty good. And then as far as on top in wrestling wise, I was good at riding legs. It's kind of like, if you're used to jiu-jitsu or just MMA, it's kind of just like getting your hooks in if you take somebody's back. But from there's like pinning combinations and stuff. That just worked the best for me. And it actually ended up working in transitioning to jiu-jitsu, because I was kind of used to that. Yeah, wrestling was fun. I miss it. Rough on your body, though. All right, Pancration asks, how hyped are you for Usman versus Covington fight? Great card as well. Yeah, UFC 245 is a really good card. Really good card. I'm excited for it. And that fight's going to be good. I'm a little nervous about the buildup. I feel like it can get a little bit ugly, given the boundaries, or the lack of boundaries, that Covington has had recently in his trash talking game, and giving, who Usman is, and the bad blood they have. Like, hopefully it doesn't get into some nasty territory. I'm all in for some rivalries and beef and trash talk, but I think there are certain limits in certain territories where you're like, especially somebody that has to cover that and often like asked about it as I'm being asked now and comment on it. It gets a little tricky. But look, I have a feeling that the trash talks is actually going to be toned down a little bit. Like, one of the reasons why Colby Covington became who he is and why he's doing what he's been doing was to get the title shot, was because he was getting wins, and that's almost just not enough. Like, look at what we were just talking about, Corey Anderson, right? Like, it just seems like you got to get the wins, and if you really want to secure things, then you got to do the trash talk. Then you got to build a compelling fight so the UFC goes, okay, let's do it. It makes money. You can get to the top by winning, but if you don't trash talk, it might take you more wins. And every time you step in the cage, you're rolling the dice. So that's not the case anymore. Colby Covington is fighting for the belt. Like, he doesn't need to talk his way into a title. He put in the work, both media-wise and in his fights, and now he's got it. So there's literally no reason, besides just getting into Kamaru Usman's head and kind of riling him up. There's really no reason for him to be talking trash. Now, obviously, it's part of his persona now. So I don't think he'll be the Colby of old, but I don't think he'll be going the extra mile to talk trash. He got the title shot. He got what he wanted. So I think we should be good in that area. But yeah, stacked card, 3 title fights. Should be good. Yeah, it's going to be a fun night in Vegas. Pat Mack asks, did you see the Ross Pearson Rolling Thunder KO? Has there ever been a UFC Rolling Thunder KO? Not that I'm aware of, and I did see it. Check it out. It's up on MMAJunkie.com. Shit, yeah. That was bad. And Ross Pearson, man, I was a big fan of him. I still am. But he retired. I thought that was the right move. He had put in a good body of work. Also, he dished out a lot of damage, but he also received a lot of damage. And I believe, let me pull his record up. He's been knocked out quite a lot, I feel like. And for a long time. Yeah, so he's kind of like in a similar position to Renan Barão in the sense of he only has 1 win in his last 8 bouts. So he's 1-7. That's not good. And in those bouts, he lost 1 via knockout against Dan Hooker and 1 via TKO against Desmond Green. And then now the KO Rolling Thunder. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough game. He is how old now? 35. I mean, he's not that old. But yeah, it was a bad KO. And it was, geez, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, that's some like Johnny Walker thing. Like, yeah, I mean, I didn't see that coming. Yeah, that was a wild KO. Should I buy Endeavor UFC stocks when they go public? I don't know. You do whatever you want. You be a UFC owner, right? Pat Mack, yeah, Bobby Green and Trinaldo was one of the better fights on the card. Yeah, that fight lived up. It was a good fight. It was a good fight. Also, another tough one to score, kind of like the main event, but completely the opposite because there was too much action. I mean, things kind of dialed down towards the end, but yeah. I hated the co-main event too. Pat Mask says. What was the co-main event? Oh, that wasn't all that bad. Shogun? No, that was actually an entertaining fight. Shogun versus Paul Craig. Actually, I'm trying to get an interview with Paul Craig. I want to talk to him about that fight. I felt like he had it for like on that first round. He was lighting Shogun up. I think it was his reach. Shogun wasn't expecting. I think Paul Craig to be so willing to strike. I think he probably expected him to take the fight to the ground at all costs. I mean, obviously, hindsight 2020, and don't get me wrong, Paul Craig is a very good jiu-jitsu guy, so it did make sense to bring Shogun to the ground into his guard. But I don't know. I think Paul Craig, if he would have stood with him in the third round, I think he could have had a lot of success and possibly won that fight. It was a draw, but I think he could have taken that win. I thought that was a fun fight. I'm down for a rematch. Yeah, I mean, I liked it. Let's see. Break down Colby versus Usman, please. Yeah, sure. I'll just do a quick breakdown. I think that is an interesting fight. I think Usman, they're both very similar fighters. I think Usman might be the stronger guy when it comes to grappling, which that goes a long way, especially if you meet fire with fire. If they're gonna lock horns and go wrestling for wrestling. Usman will have the advantage on that area. However, I do think Covington has better submissions, not by a whole lot, but I do think he has better submissions. I mean, early in his career, he was submitting a lot of people. Let's pull up UFC 245 here. All right. So Covington has 5 submission wins, 2 knockout wins, 8 decisions. Yeah, he's a good jiu-jitsu guy. And training at ATT, you're gonna get good grapplers. Like you're gonna get good exposure to high-level jiu-jitsu. He hasn't submitted anybody as of late. I mean, his last 5 fights have gotten to decision. The last time he submitted someone was in 2016. But yeah, when he stepped into the UFC, in his first 5 fights, or his first 4 wins, he won 2 of those by submission and 1 by TKO. Yeah, he's got good submissions. Obviously, as he gets higher up in competition, right, it's hard to submit a Damian Maia, so you might just beat him by decision. It's hard to submit a Rafael dos Anjos, so you might just beat him by decision. Same thing with Robbie Lawler, Dong Yun Kim. Those guys are stud grapplers. So yeah, but he does have good submissions. Will he submit Kamaru Usman? Probably not, but that is something worth mentioning. As far as the striking, I think Covington is the better striker. I think maybe Usman probably hits a little harder. It's gonna be an interesting matchup. As far as how it goes, I feel like it's kind of like a 50-50. I think I could very well see a scenario where Usman ends up being the superior and stronger grappler and just bullies his way through positions. Obviously, he's going to find some difficulty, but overall, in the overall picture, he will impose his will and do enough to be the dominant figure in that fight and get the decision win. But I can also see kind of that scenario playing out, but then having a little bit of the wrestling, doing a little bit more of canceling each other out. So yes, Usman will have success here and there, but I think maybe there's a scenario where Covington can surpass that with just however long the fight is on the feet, just doing more damage and being the busier guy that he swayed the judges into scoring the fight for him just by having it kind of being like a close fight on the ground, and then on the feet being decisive enough for him to take the win. So I think that's kind of like a 50-50. I'm actually, if gun to my head, I had to pick someone. I think Covington, man. But again, I think it goes either way. I don't know. That's a close fight. Luke Thomas, my boy Luke, he'll probably have a really good breakdown on that. So whenever that comes out, I think he's talked about it already, and has made something on it. But yeah, whenever that fight gets closer, I'm sure he'll have something on it, and make sure to check that out. He is one of the best at breaking things down, and does it most regularly, and he's killing it over there at Morning Combat and Showtime. So yeah, check that out whenever that comes out. I mean, I'll probably retweet it or something. It should be a good breakdown, because that's a tough fight to figure out. Brandon Music says Colby can't out wrestle Usman. Colby is better at keeping you on the cage in the clinch situation. Usman is a better wrestler. He'll keep Colby down. Yeah. That's pretty much what I said, basically. Usman has much better ground and pound, to which Colby has. Yeah, Usman probably dishes out more damage on the ground than Colby. Yeah. Overall, just Usman is a more dominant figure, a more dominant presence on the ground. Like, if you probably ask any fighter, who'd you rather have on top of you, Usman or Covington? I mean, either scenario is not good. I mean, they're both good on top, but probably Usman would be the guy you'd not pick. Like, he's probably the more dangerous one. Coco Butt. Amanda Nunes versus Iron Lady breakdown, please. So for some reason, I think a lot of people are just kind of scuffing this one. What are the odds? Like, I've already talked to a few people, like at the office and stuff. When I was at Vox, and just friends and stuff, and they're kind of just like, yeah, Amanda Nunes is gonna smoke the Iron Lady, Jermaine Durandamy. I don't get that feeling. I think she could probably, yeah, smoke her and just knock her out. But I actually think it should be a little bit more competitive than what people make it out to be. It's going to be more competitive. I think Jermaine, given her style, I think she could put on a more competitive fight than Holly Holm. Now, we saw how Holly Holm went down, but I'm saying before Holly Holm fought Amanda Nunes, there was some questions. I feel like there's more questions with a Jermaine matchup entering, from my point of view, than when Holly Holm was entering the fight with Amanda Nunes. I kind of get the same feeling. It was kind of not exact, but I remember talking to people when Weili Zhang was going to fight Jessica Andrade, and you can go back and check it out in my preview that I did on my YouTube. And people were like, yeah, Andrade's just going to smoke Weili Zhang. I'm like, I don't know. I favor her to win, and I was wrong. Obviously, we know how that played out. But in that very preview chat, I was like, dude, Weili Zhang is one of the very few that can meet Andrade with the athleticism, with the speed, with the power. Like, she's one of the stronger and more explosive ladies at 115. And she just happens to be very skilled. Did I think Andrade was going to win? Yes, but I thought Weili Zhang was going to put on a good performance, and I thought it was going to be competitive. And look how that turned out. But the feeling was that Andrade was going to go in there and smoke her, and I did not believe that. Do I favor Nunes in this fight? Yes. Do I think she's going to win? Yes. But I do think that Jermaine can put on a good fight. Jermaine hits hard, has a very similar style to Nunes in the sense that throws just straight down the pipe, straight hard punches, really puts her hip into it. One of the better and more technical fighters, strikers at 135. Amanda's, I think she's way better on the ground, but way better takedowns, way better ground and pound. Amanda Nunes' ground and pound is scary. Way better jiu-jitsu, way better submissions. I would say she hits a lot harder than Jermaine, but I think just given Jermaine's style and the fact that she still hits pretty hard and has good technique, I think it'll be a fun fight. Yeah. I don't think it could be a wash, but I think people are underestimating Jermaine a bit too much entering UFC 245, in my opinion. That's my breakdown. But yes, I would favor Nunes 100%. Lame bruh. Asks, hey Danny, I'm late, but locked in. Awesome. I'm just starting to train jiu-jitsu at a local spot just for the love of it. But what do you feel is the most important thing for a beginner to focus on first? That's a good question. I was very lucky that I started jujitsu in 2011. So that's when I graduated high school, and I needed to fill that void, that kind of, I was decent at wrestling, but I was never good enough to like get a scholarship somewhere. Never. Frankly, I wasn't that great. But so yeah, and then the thing with wrestling is that there's high school wrestling, college wrestling, but there's no wrestling academies, there's no wrestling clubs. I mean, there might be in the country every like here and there, but for the most part is like you're done with high school, you're done with wrestling. Like there's no jujitsu school, like in that sense. Like there's no, wrestling academies popping up. Come learn wrestling. It just doesn't work that way. It's either you do it in college or you do it in high school. That's it. Um, yeah, like there's no other place you can learn wrestling. Or you go to a jiu-jitsu school and they might have a wrestling class, but then it's built towards jiu-jitsu, not not your typical folk style wrestling, with the point system and all. Anyways, I'm going on a bit of a rant here. So when I started jiu-jitsu was in an interesting spot. It was kind of starting to get modern. I believe around 2013 or so, the Mendes bros were getting kind of big, and you started seeing berimbolo and people going inverted and whatnot. But I was lucky enough to start at an era at a school that focused on basics. So it was take the guy down, get in the guard, break the guard, pass the guard, side control, get or half guards, then look to move to side control, look to move to mount, then from mount, either take the mount or the back, and then look for submissions as well. Obviously, within all that process, you're still looking for submissions and whatever comes you take. But the idea is to keep advancing, to keep getting more dominant. And the more dominant you get, the easier the submissions get, right? It's you can submit somebody with you being on top and being on in half guard. Yeah, there's Kimuras, Americanas there's chokes if you're working with the gi. But now if you're on mount, bro, you got armbar, you can set up triangles, you can set up gi chokes. So I came up in a time where it was a lot more basics oriented. So it happens to me that towards the end of when I was grappling, I wasn't grappling as often. So I would go in a gym and go against guys that had just started and were pretty good. I feel like people exploded after their first 3 months are over, like that year period or 6 months to a year, guys are pretty good, like, and they're creative. So they'll catch you even if you've been training for years, or at least surprise you. And what I came to find out and notice is like I had a lot of problem with leg locks, because leg locks rule. Leg locks are the biggest thing right now. So especially in nogi, I was having a lot of difficulty with that. But as soon as I got past the legs, like, they're usually on their back trying to set something up. As soon as I'm past the legs, there's not much being taught as far as the basics. So I was just smoking guys, and me being off the couch, like not training consistently, just smoking guys just because I would be able to defend the leg locks. And then once I get past that, they got nothing. They don't know how to escape the back. They don't know how to get out of the mount properly. They don't know side control all that well. So basics. If you're starting out in jiu-jitsu, that's my tip. Basics, basics, basics. Learn your triangle chokes. Learn your guillotine chokes. Learn your kimuras. Learn how to pass positions. Learn how to hold positions. I feel like the positional game has the value of holding a position has been lost. Like, I've grappled with guys that just let me mount them, because then they'll just bring a leg over or put their foot on your armpit and get out the back door. Like, and if you learn how to stop that, and then you have, there goes some bikes. I don't know if you guys can hear all that shit, but if you just learn the basics, like I was just smoking people with basics, and I'm not very good with leg locks, but I know enough to stop them. And then I was just guillotining the hell out of everyone, and I'm good with the darts and what's the opposite one? Not from neck to armpit. The darts and the anaconda. Like I've always been good at catching those. So my suggestion would be basics. Try to find someone like a Marcelo Garcia, or like some of these old school guys that really have the basics down. Like look up stuff on YouTube and just learn basics. Yes, the leg lock stuff is important, and that'll get you pretty far. But I feel like there's just too much emphasis on that. Let's stick to the basics. Just basic Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I feel like that'll go pretty far. And if you get into a street fight, I think that's the best for self defense. You don't want to be on your back. So, yeah. But yeah, keep training and it'll get better. Trust me. The first few months suck, but then once you start tapping people and you know what's good, it's gonna get fun. So keep training and don't get discouraged. That was lame bruh, right? Yeah. Let's see what else. Brandon Music, what's next for Charles Oliveira? I kind of already discussed that. Anybody in the top 10. Greg Gillespie, he's coming off a loss. I think he should get a bigger name, somebody, either a bigger name or somebody coming off a win. I suggested Cowboy Cerrone. Why not? Rematch. Anthony also, will you ever go on Morning Combat with Luke and Brian? I think I can. And yes, whenever they invite me, sure. Daniel Yerk. So should someone training MMA practice wrestling takedowns from the boxing stands? Yeah. I mean, ideally, but the thing with the boxing stands is that it's built, the boxing stance is built so that your league leg is behind you. And in wrestling, if you want to shoot, your strong leg should be in front of you. So you can do things to strengthen, I guess, both legs, and ideally, yes, but like it's always going to be, in my opinion, either or. But yeah, you can get you can learn takedowns. Ideally, you don't want to switch stands and then shoot takedown. It's an extra step. You want to be able to shoot takedowns straight from your striking stance, but that is a difficult thing to do. Someone that's very good at that, especially early on, Joseph Benavidez, because Joseph Benavidez actually strikes. I think he switches, but Joseph Benavidez strikes a lot and is very comfortable striking from his wrestling stance. And that's why his wrestling throughout his career has been so good, especially early on. So he jabs with his right hand. Look up Joseph Benavidez, and that's someone that that did the opposite, kept his wrestling stance and learned how to strike from his wrestling stance. I believe he could do both. He switches, but yeah, he jabs with the right and his two is his left hand. Yeah, watch some old Joe B fights. He's good at that. Salute from Vegas. Hello. Salute from Brooklyn, New York. So we're getting close to 47 minutes. I want to keep these an hour, so I'll be around for 13 more minutes. I have Crowbert or C Robert 79 says, I have not watched yesterday's UFC event. I've heard it was pretty terrible. Was there anything worth going back to watch? Yes. Charles Oliveira, watch his performance. Watch also Francisco Trinaldo versus Bobby Green. That was fun. Trinaldo's a stud, man. Watch Shogun Rua versus Paul Craig. I thought that was a fun fight. Watch, let's see, who else? The James Krause Sergio Moraes fight was started maybe a little boring, but it picked up, and I enjoyed that one. It was a good good performance by James Krause. James Krause is currently a nice streak, so someone that should be getting a big name soon. So I would just watch that performance because I think it's a relevant fight at that weight class, 170. Who else? Randy Brown versus Warley Alves was a good fight to watch as well. I can't believe nobody has asked me this yet, but watch Douglas Silva de Andrade versus Renan Barão. What the hell happened to Renan Barão, man? Yeah, I don't know. Watch that one just because it's fascinating, but fascinating almost has like a positive feel, I liked watching. It's kind of, it sucks because he was so good. He's just not as explosive, and I really don't know what happened. But yeah, Renan Barão lost he's 1-7 in his past 8 bouts, if I'm not mistaken. 5-fight losing streak, right? Or maybe 6. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. His last win was in 2016. This is probably it. He's probably getting his walking papers, to be honest. I'd be surprised if the UFC keeps him. Shame. And then the Ariane Lipski was also a good fight. That was a fun little back and forth scrap against Isabella Padua. I mean, there was some decent fights, man. Yeah, go watch them. Nurlan Ramas Ramasanov, yeah, asks or says, I want Colby to win, but man, who in the right man watches Dos Anjos versus Usman and Leon Edwards versus Usman and can say Colby has any chance? Colby does have a chance. Yeah. And Edwards is a very good grappler. Yeah. And Leon Edwards is the odd man out in this whole equation. He should be talked about more often. Alec Cartier asks, double hooks flattened out. Wait, what? Yeah, double hooks flattened out is the worst. Or Saturday night right mount. I forgot which one that is. The Saturday night right mount. It's the one with the underhooks underneath the leg, right? And they're bringing in their hips and squeezing the hell out of your abdomen and in your air. But yeah, double hooks flattened out is the worst. There's so many shitty positions, dude. It's shameful, but like there's many times that I've tapped when I'm exhausted and going against heavier guys just because the position is so damn uncomfortable. Being mounted doesn't suck as much. You get somebody that's really heavy and really good at distributing their weight on top of you if you're in grappling. And side control is a nightmare. Side control. I used to grapple with this guy. I used to call him the boulder. He was obviously a big guy. He was probably like 200 and something pounds. And I'm not that heavy. But it was like he was like a Daniel Cormier type. He's like small but like compact, weird. And yeah, dude, just being on side control was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. You couldn't breathe. Your chest was just being crushed constantly against the mat, and at the same time you're like moving around, so spending a lot of energy and breathing heavy, and it's kind of like constricting. So every time you breathe out, so their weight sinks in more into your chest. So when you want to breathe in for air, you can't, because your lungs, your rib cage is literally being smashed between their body, their chest, and the mat. So like you need air to fuel your body again, but there isn't any air you can pick up, just very little, and you got to move around and you waste a lot of energy just to find little pockets of air, especially if you're wearing the gi as well. It just sucks. It's the worst. I miss grappling though. I gotta resume that. All right. Immigrant mentality, Steopic. Danny, what's up? Lane bro, thanks for the advice, man. I've been watching YouTube videos like crazy to try to learn the basics. I'll definitely be keeping at it. Yeah, for sure, dude. Keep going at it. Jiu-jitsu's fun, man. Take your breaks though, because it's easy to get injured, man. And it's hard to take breaks because once you start getting good and you want to, implement your techniques, you want to train, but take your breaks. Luke Bennett asks, what matchups not being discussed you would like to see? What matchups not being discussed would you like to see? Not being discussed. No, I feel like that's something fans and media do pretty well. Like for the most part, like what we want, it's usually talked about. Here and there, sometimes there's matchups that people don't bring up. You can get kind of creative, but out of the top of my head, all right, this might be a little controversial. You want a hot take? I'll give you one. I low-key want to see MVP versus Paul Daly 2. I know their first fight was a dud. It was boring. But I have a feeling it's very hard to replicate that fight again. I do have a feeling if they were to fight again, we would actually see some striking from Paul Daly. And there's the bad blood never went away. It's still there. I'd like to see that one. Yeah. That first one didn't scratch my itch. It just didn't. And to be honest, I like MVP. Cool guy. Man U fan. I love interviewing him. Super nice guy. But okay, I don't have a huge problem with him fighting guys. Who did he fight last time? Something Kieli, like guys like that, and getting these like crazy highlight reel knockouts. But I feel like we already got that, and I don't mind Bellator kind of matching him up from time to time with those kinds of matchups. I do think they're needed. I think everybody needs tune-up fights, and you can't just be redlining all the time. You gotta kind of go up and down as far as the opposition, ideally, right? But it's hard once you're at the top. But shit, I mean, I want to see more matchups with guys that are good, that we know that are good, that we know that are dangerous. For example, the Paul Daly one was one of them. The Douglas Lima was one of them. We saw how that turned out. But yeah, let's get him against some big names. He was supposed to fight somebody and they pulled out. Obviously, that's not Bellator's fault. I think it was injury, but let me pull up MVP's record. He had an opponent change, and now he's fighting someone I've never heard of. I think. So he fought Richard Kelly, which that was a fun build-up, not gonna lie. He did a good job at selling it, but that guy was not on his level. So he was supposed to face Derek Anderson. Okay, Derek Anderson is legit, right? At the top of my head, I don't really know who he's beaten, but I've obviously certainly Derek Anderson. He's good. He's a Bellator vet. Yeah, I mean he's fought like the Ottawa. He has a split decision win over Patricky Pitbull. That's nice. Lost to Derek Campos in his most recent loss. That was in 2017. That would have been a good fight. Yeah, a nice step up. That's the kind of caliber I want to see MVP get tested. I want to keep seeing him get tested, right? Because a loss to Douglas Lima doesn't tell you much. Like losing to Douglas Lima, 95% of the welterweights on this planet will lose to Douglas Lima. So it doesn't tell you all that much where he's at in his level. And the MVP, the Paul Daly fight, we saw how that went down. That didn't tell us much as well. So I want to see him get this mid-tier, high-level guys. Enough of the Richard Kellys for now. Yeah, now he's facing somebody else, right? I saw that. But I don't know. Let's see the news here. I'm pretty sure he pulled out. Yeah, he pulled out, and Michael Page is now facing he's facing someone. I saw it somewhere, but yeah. All right. Well, enough for that. But yeah, I do want to see Paul Daly versus Giovanni Melillo. I just saw an MMA Junkie. Yeah, I'd like to see that one. And that's never talked about. Why? Because the first one sucked. But I really do think the second one would go a lot differently. It was kind of like the same deal of Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis. The first one sucked, but you want to see the second one. It'd be fun. Yeah, Luke Bennett. Yeah, I feel the same way about Lewis Ngannou. Yep. Lane Bro, Pitbull versus Max Holloway. First thought, who would you favor in a dream matchup? Max Holloway, for sure. UFC 099, your channel sucks. And Meguro's way better kid. I don't know who that is, but sure. I mean, if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. You're not forced to watch this. So, yeah. Thanks for the love. Appreciate it. All right, we got 2 more minutes, so I'll take one more question and I'll dip out because that'll be an hour. Anyone got any more questions? Send them. Let me check Twitter. I haven't checked Twitter throughout all this stream. I don't know if anybody has tweeted anything. No questions. But ideally, when I do these more often, again, I'm trying to do it on a weekly basis. Queue some questions up so I can see them and I may have a more elaborate answer to give you. So yeah, let's get into that habit. And then once that's done, I'll tackle the chat. But yeah. All right. If nobody has any more questions, I'm literally 30 seconds away from hitting an hour. So I'm going to call it quits here. I'll take one last one. Luke Bennett, cross promotional dream matchups. Ooh, There's so many. I'd like to see Kyoji Horiguchi at 135 in the UFC. I think he got better when he left the UFC. Um, got stronger. I'd like to see how he would fare against some of those guys at 135. That'd be one. Douglas Lima. Douglas Lima against any really like top striker at 170, or even whoever ends up getting the belt at UFC 245 between Usman and Colby. Like, I really do think it's clear that Lima is one of the best welterweights on the planet. We just don't really know how good he is because he's yet to face. Rory was a good test for him, but he's yet to face, the champions and the guys at the top over at the UFC. My hunch is he's a top 5 welterweight in the UFC. But again, we would only find out until that actually goes down. I mean, I thought Ben Askren was one of the best welterweights in the world. I'm having second thoughts about that. Obviously, not fighting in his prime. I think there's something to be said about that. But going into the UFC, I thought he was going to do much better. So again, those are questions that you can only answer until they cross over. But I really, Douglas Lima one is interesting. I'd like to see Douglas Lima. I'm curious to see how he would do against opposition in the UFC. All right. With that being said, that is an hour, so I appreciate everyone that tuned in and watched this live Q&A. I appreciate everyone that submitted questions. What else? Appreciate everyone that's been following me, and like I said, I'm now over at MMA Junkie, no longer with MMA Fighting, and I truly appreciate all the love I got with the switch and all the support I got. And yeah, stay tuned to MMA Junkie. I'm excited. It's a good opportunity, and I'm excited for what's in store in the future. Should be some fun stuff coming up in the horizon. So yeah, awesome. So thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate the support. Appreciate the love. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button on this video right after this video ends. Tell your friends about it. Turn your notifications on so you can know whenever I go live in the future. And that's all I got. Thank you guys for everything, and peace out. I'm out.